First things first, non-believers have absolutely zero belief as to what heaven will look like for Christians, simply because of the fact that we are non-believers. So therefore, your ideas of what we think heaven is like is your own thought process of what heaven is like. Each one of those descriptions that you showed of what heaven is like for non-believers that were actually created by believers. So therefore, how can you say that is a non-believer's idea of what heaven is like, when in truth, that is what a believer thought heaven would be like? Now, after that, you showed, this creator shows what heaven is like, with streets of gold and buildings and gates and houses and thrones and this tree of life that produces 12 times a year in season, and you have access to the tree of life, makes absolutely zero sense in the cosmology of energy. Because if Christians really believe that they were going to leave this realm and become a full spiritual being, but with a body, then you would need all that. But that doesn't make any sense as far as the transmutation of energy. That would be a form of reincarnation from an earthly body to what you would call a heavenly body. And that in itself is reincarnating. You may look like yourself, you may not, who knows? But you still have bodily functions. Thinking about it, you need a house for shelter. You need streets to walk down. You need thrones as a place to come and worship this God. This God needs a throne to sit on because he has a body. Jesus sits at the right hand of this God. And the 12 disciples, the new one, not Judas, the other 12 disciples are sitting there in judgment. You need gates to keep people out. These are things that a body needs. You also have a tree of life that you must consume in order to have continuous life. It is not everlasting life without the tree. You must be able to consume the tree. This goes all the way back to Genesis, where they had to be kicked out of the garden because now that they know the difference, when this guy said that now man knows the difference between good and evil and has become like us, knowing that difference, he cannot now have access to the tree of life. Otherwise, man would live forever. So Genesis, according to your Bible, indicates that in order for man to live forever, he must have this tree of life. It's ridiculous. So your cosmology of heaven is nothing more than a glorified vacation cosmology of earth, of how you live on earth. And that is what the writers conceptualize, because that is what people would understand. If you try to teach people that when you leave this poverty of the flesh, which is this ill-designed body, then you will exist in a pure energetic state, not requiring the consumption of food, that you will just be completely eternal with energy, never ending, in concert with the frequency of the universe, not needing shelter, not needing a road to walk down, a throne to sit on, a gate to keep others out. You wouldn't need all of this because you have become pure energy in connection with the universe in the same frequency. But because of the small-mindedness and the small imagination of people of that day, and people still believe this, they wrote it so that it was familiar to how the rich and how the powerful and how those who lived in the lap of luxury would live. What good is a mansion if it's so damn big that you're one or two persons in the mansion and you're not even using the room? What do you need the mansion for? Because that's what the rich people had of that day, so that's how you describe it. Because poor people want to have what rich people have without doing the work. So, therefore, let's say that when you get to heaven, you get to have a mansion, or you get a room in the mansion, because oftentimes the vassals or the vassals would come to the primary states of the governors and the lords and the kings and the emperors and so on and so forth, and they would be given a room to stay in the castle, stay in the palace, and they would have access to all the other accoutrements of the palace, but be in that, but have just a room in there. And that's why it tells you that in your father's house there are many rooms, because that's how rich people treated other rich people who came to visit them. They honored them by giving them a room in their palace. So you just stand in a big ass hotel. You stand at the Ritz-Carlton. You know, you in Vegas, stand at the Wynn. That's all you doing. That's the imagination. That's the thought process. And you may say it's all allegory, but the allegory doesn't lead you to a state of just pure energetic consciousness existing within the universe, attached, recommitted back to the source of all things. It doesn't give you that imagery. No, you are a person that's walking around bowing down, worshiping this God. That is the image. There is no way to go from pure energy existence in consciousness to a body that's worshiping a God and angels flying around his head. Well, seraphim flying around his head. No, cherubim flying around his head screaming, holy, 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 holy all the time, and having to consume the tree of life that blooms and gives fruit at a certain particular time. How do you, if you're constantly being eternal energy connected with the frequency of the universe, there's no timing for you to maintain your energy that you, it's the first of the month, let me go eat my tree of life fruit. No, there's no timing for that, because time would not exist in the same frequency and mindset that we have about time today, because our time is based on this earth revolving around the sun, or the earth revolutions, and then it going around the sun. That's how we have seasons. That's how we have time. And in a pure conscious state, there is no time. Time doesn't exist, just as time doesn't exist outside of your perception of time. So these ideas of what heaven is very really handicapped. I mean, you're talking about them having a body, them having to eat. That means they still have a stomach. They still have an intestine. They still got to go piss and shit. Does that sound like heaven? There's bathrooms in heaven? Is that what we're talking about? There's plumbing in this heaven? I mean, you got buildings and rooms and things of that nature. So there is plumbing in this heaven. And just think about how poorly this body is designed. For a man, the ping ping. It is a place that derives pleasure. It is a place that empties waste. And it is a place that the creation of a baby all comes from, the same place. So you got waste material, pleasure, and regeneration all coming from the same place. And then is really close to the big waste dumper. And the same thing with the woman. At least the woman has a different tube where her waste comes from, but the waste comes right above the creation tunnel. Make it make sense. It doesn't. It is poorly designed. The human body is poorly designed. There are some amazing things about the human body, but that portion of it is a poor design. And I know others may disagree and say it's very, very efficient. I could have designed something hell of a lot better than that. There would have been total separate place for waste removal than there is for regeneration, and they wouldn't be all up close to each other like that. That's nasty, and when you really think about it. And this is why it's so easy to have UTIs and bacterial infections and yeast infections and all these things, because proximity is the proximity is horrible. It would have been better if like your waist came out under your arm instead of being down there. You see what I'm saying? So heaven is human created, just as this God is human created. And this is why we deconstruct from this, because it makes absolutely no sense and is only seen through the eyes of the science that man knows at any given time that he is doing this writing. And that is why the science of 2,000, 3,000 years ago does not match the science of today. But what do you guys think? Like, share, and subscribe, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.